There is a moment in every life when a painful truth quietly reveals itself. Not loudly, not dramatically, but unmistakably. That truth is this: no one is coming to save you. No one is coming to save you. Not your parents, not your partner, not your government, not some distant opportunity that will magically appear and solve everything. Not timing, not circumstance. No one is coming. And the sooner you accept this truth, the sooner your real life begins. This isn't meant to be cruel. It's meant to wake you up. Because right now, if you're honest with yourself, you're waiting. Maybe not consciously. Maybe you deny it if asked directly. But somewhere deep in your mind, you're waiting for someone or something to arrive and make things better, to give you permission, to provide the answer, to fix what's broken, to rescue you from whatever situation you're in. And while you wait, time passes. Days become weeks. Weeks become months. Months become years. And you remain exactly where you are, not because you lack ability, not because opportunities don't exist, but because you've outsourced your power to forces outside yourself. You've made your progress dependent on external validation, external rescue, external change, and nothing external is coming. At least not in the way you imagine, not in the way that saves you from having to save yourself. This is the truth most people spend their entire lives avoiding. They construct elaborate narratives to explain why they're stuck, why they haven't achieved what they want, why their lives haven't unfolded the way they hoped. And these narratives always point outward: the economy, their background, their circumstances, other people's decisions, bad luck, poor timing, unfair systems. There's always something external to blame, something to justify the waiting, something to excuse the inaction. But beneath all these narratives is a simpler reality. You're waiting because waiting feels safer than taking full responsibility. Because if you admit that no one is coming, that rescue isn't arriving, that you are the only force that will change your life, then you have to act. You have to decide. You have to face the discomfort of self-command. And that's terrifying, because it means you can't blame anyone else anymore. You can't hide behind circumstances. You can't wait for permission or perfect conditions. You have to become the source of your own salvation. And most people would rather wait forever than face that responsibility. But here's what they don't understand. Here's what you're about to discover. The moment you stop waiting, the moment you accept that no one is coming, everything changes. Not externally at first. Externally, your circumstances might look identical. But internally, a shift occurs that is so fundamental, so profound, that it alters your entire trajectory. You stop being a victim. You stop being at the mercy of forces outside yourself. You become sovereign, self-determined, free. And from that internal shift, external transformation becomes not just possible, but inevitable. This is not motivational rhetoric. This is observed reality. Every person who has genuinely transformed their life, who has moved from limitation to possibility, from stagnation to momentum, from weakness to strength, has made this same shift. They stopped waiting. They stopped expecting rescue. They accepted full responsibility for their circumstances, their emotions, their outcomes. And from that acceptance, they found a power they didn't know they possessed. The power of self-command. The power to save themselves. Today, I'm going to show you why this truth, which initially feels harsh and isolating, is actually your greatest advantage. Why accepting that no one is coming is not a burden, but a liberation. Why radical self-responsibility is not punishment, but the foundation of all genuine strength and freedom. And why the moment you truly internalize this principle, you gain access to capacities you've been unconsciously suppressing your entire life. But first, we need to understand why people wait in the first place. Why the pattern of expecting external rescue is so deeply embedded in human psychology. And why recognizing this pattern in yourself is the first step toward breaking free from it. From the moment you're born, you're dependent. As an infant, you literally cannot survive without external care. You cry and someone comes. You're hungry and someone feeds you. You're uncomfortable and someone fixes it. This is natural. This is necessary. But it also creates a pattern a deep neurological association between distress and external rescue, between need and someone else's response. As you grow, this pattern is supposed to shift. You're supposed to gradually internalize the capacity to meet your own needs, to regulate your own emotions, to solve your own problems, to become increasingly independent. But for most people, this shift never fully occurs. They reach physical adulthood while remaining psychologically dependent, still waiting for external forces to rescue them from discomfort, uncertainty, or challenge. This dependency shows up in countless ways. Waiting for motivation before taking action. Waiting for someone to give you permission to pursue what you want. Waiting for confidence to arrive before attempting something difficult. Waiting for circumstances to improve before committing to change. Waiting for clarity before making decisions. Waiting for the right moment that never comes. All forms of the same underlying pattern. Outsourcing your power to forces outside yourself. And our culture reinforces this constantly. We're told that if we just find the right relationship, we'll be happy. If we just get the right job, we'll be fulfilled. If we just achieve the right status, we'll be secure. If we just earn enough money, we'll be free. The message is always the same. Happiness, fulfillment, security, freedom, they're all external. They exist outside you. And if you can just manipulate circumstances correctly, just find the right external conditions, you'll finally have what you're looking for. But this is a lie, not a malicious lie necessarily, but a lie nonetheless, because nothing external can give you what you're actually seeking. External circumstances can provide temporary pleasure, temporary relief, temporary distraction, but the deep needs you have for security, for meaning, for peace, for strength, these can only be met internally, by you, through your own development, through taking full responsibility for your inner state regardless of outer circumstances. Most people never realize this. They spend their entire lives chasing external solutions to internal problems. They think if they just change their situation, they'll feel different. So they change jobs, change relationships, change locations, change strategies, and each time, briefly, things feel better. The novelty provides temporary relief. But soon the same feelings return, the same dissatisfaction, the same insecurity, the same sense that something is missing, because the problem was never external. It was internal, and no external change can fix an internal problem. This is why waiting is so destructive. When you're waiting for external rescue, you're waiting for something that cannot arrive. You're hoping for a solution that doesn't exist in the form you imagine. And while you wait, you remain passive, reactive, at the mercy of circumstances. Your life doesn't improve because you're not actively improving it. You're just hoping it will improve on its own, or that someone else will improve it for you. And that hope keeps you trapped in the same patterns indefinitely. But there's something deeper happening here, something more subtle. When you wait for external rescue, you're also avoiding something. You're avoiding the discomfort of taking full responsibility. Because full responsibility means facing difficult truths. It means acknowledging that your current situation, whatever it is at least partly the result of your own choices, your own actions, your own patterns. And that's painful to admit. It's much easier to believe you're a victim of circumstances beyond your control. Because if you're a victim, you're not responsible. You don't have to change. You just have to wait for circumstances to change. This victim mentality is seductive. It feels true. It feels justified, especially when real obstacles exist, when real disadvantages are present, when real injustices have occurred. But here's what the victim mentality doesn't tell you. Even when circumstances are genuinely difficult, even when obstacles are real, even when you've faced genuine injustice, you still have power. The power to respond, the power to adapt, the power to take whatever action is available to you. And when you claim that power, when you stop waiting and start acting, you stop being a victim. You become an agent, someone who acts upon the world rather than being acted upon. This shift from victim to agent is perhaps the most important psychological transition any person can make. And it only happens when you stop waiting, when you stop expecting rescue, when you accept that you are the only one responsible for your life, no one else. Not your parents who shaped you. Not your partner who supports or doesn't support you. Not your employer who pays you. Not society that offers or withholds opportunities. Just you. Fully, completely, without qualification or excuse. Let me show you what this looks like in practice. Let me tell you about someone who made this shift. Someone who stopped waiting and discovered the power that had been available all along. There was a man I once knew, I'll call him Daniel, who spent 15 years waiting. He worked a job he hated because it was safe. He stayed in a relationship that had died years earlier because leaving felt too difficult. He had dreams, things he wanted to create, places he wanted to go, ways he wanted to develop himself. But he never pursued them. He was waiting. Waiting for the right time. Waiting for more money. Waiting for more clarity. Waiting for circumstances to somehow align perfectly so the risk would disappear. Daniel told himself he was being responsible, being patient, being realistic. But what he was actually doing was avoiding responsibility. Because real responsibility doesn't wait for perfect conditions. Real responsibility acts with whatever conditions exist. Daniel knew this on some level, but acknowledging it would have meant facing how much time he'd wasted, how many opportunities he'd missed, how much of his life had been spent in a holding pattern of his own creation. Then something happened. Not dramatic. Daniel's company announced restructuring. His safe job wasn't as safe as he thought. And in that moment, the illusion shattered. The thing he'd been waiting for, security, stability, the right conditions, it wasn't coming. It had never been coming. He'd been waiting for something that didn't exist. And he'd wasted 15 years doing it. Most people in this situation would panic, would fall into despair, would feel betrayed by circumstances. But Daniel had a different response. He felt relief, because the illusion had been exhausting, pretending he was waiting for the right moment when really he was just afraid. Pretending external circumstances would eventually align when really he was avoiding the discomfort of change. The shattering of that illusion was painful, but it was also clarifying. Daniel realized no one was coming. Not the company to provide lifelong security. Not his partner to make him happy. Not some future version of himself who would magically have more courage. No one was coming. And if his life was going to change, he had to change it. Not someday. Now. Not when conditions were perfect, with conditions as they were. So Daniel made decisions, real decisions, not vague intentions, not someday plans, decisions with commitment and consequence. He left the job, not recklessly. He had a plan, but he left. He ended the relationship, kindly but firmly, because staying was cowardice disguised as consideration. He moved to a different city where opportunities aligned better with what he actually wanted. And he started building the thing he'd been thinking about for 15 years, but never starting. The first year was difficult, more difficult than waiting had been, because action requires more energy than passivity, because responsibility is heavier than victimhood, because facing reality demands more courage than hiding in comfortable illusions. But something else happened. Daniel became stronger, not suddenly, gradually. Each decision he made proved he could make decisions. Each challenge he faced proved he could face challenges. Each problem he solved proved he could solve problems. His confidence wasn't coming from external validation. It was coming from internal evidence, proof that he was capable, that he didn't need rescue, that he could save himself. Within 3 years, Daniel's external life was unrecognizable. Better career, better relationships, better health, better finances. But the external changes weren't even the most significant transformation. The internal change was more profound. Daniel had discovered something. He'd discovered that he was enough. Not perfectly capable. Not without weakness or limitation, but enough. Enough to handle whatever came. Enough to figure things out. Enough to create the life he wanted without waiting for permission or perfect conditions. And this discovery, this realization that he was enough, that rescue wasn't necessary because he could rescue himself. This changed everything. Because once you know you can save yourself, you stop living in fear. You stop needing external validation. You stop being controlled by circumstances. You become free in a way that has nothing to do with external conditions and everything to do with internal sovereignty. Now contrast Daniel with someone else. Someone I'll call Michelle. Michelle was equally stuck, equally unfulfilled, equally aware that her life wasn't what she wanted. But Michelle responded differently. When her moment of clarity came, when circumstances revealed that the rescue she'd been waiting for wasn't coming, she didn't take responsibility. She doubled down on waiting. She told herself she needed more time, more resources, more support. She blamed her circumstances, her past, other people, the unfairness of systems. Michelle convinced herself that taking responsibility was impossible given her situation, that other people could change their lives because they had advantages she didn't have. That waiting wasn't avoidance, but wisdom. That staying stuck was actually being careful. And she found plenty of people who validated this narrative, who agreed that, yes, circumstances were difficult. Yes, she'd been treated unfairly. Yes, she deserved better. But none of this validation changed anything. Michelle remained stuck. Years passed. Her situation didn't improve, because waiting for better circumstances is a strategy that doesn't work. Circumstances only improve when you improve them. And you can only improve them by taking responsibility and acting, not by waiting for them to improve on their own. Today, Daniel and Michelle are in completely different places. Not because Daniel had advantages Michelle lacked. If anything, Michelle started with more advantages: better education, stronger network, more financial resources. The difference wasn't circumstances. It was response. Daniel accepted that no one was coming and took full responsibility. Michelle kept waiting for someone or something to save her. One found freedom, the other remained trapped, same amount of time. Radically different outcomes, all determined by one fundamental choice: to wait or to act, to expect rescue or to become self-rescuing. This is the pattern that plays out millions of times, in every city, every country, every circumstance. Some people accept responsibility and transform. Others keep waiting and remain stuck. And the determining factor is never external. It's always internal. It's always whether someone accepts the truth that no one is coming or continues believing the comfortable lie that rescue is on its way. So let me break down exactly what changes when you make this shift. What happens internally when you stop waiting and accept full responsibility for yourself? Because this isn't just a philosophical idea. It's a practical transformation with specific psychological effects. First, you develop what I call self-rescue capacity. This is the deep internal knowing that whatever happens, you can handle it. Not perfectly, not without difficulty, but you can handle it. You can figure things out. You can adapt. You can solve problems. You can create solutions. This capacity isn't something you're born with. It's something you develop by repeatedly proving to yourself that you can handle challenges without external rescue. Every time you face something difficult and work through it yourself, you strengthen this capacity. Every time you solve a problem without waiting for someone else to solve it, you prove you're capable. Every time you regulate your own emotions without needing external soothing, you demonstrate internal strength. These instances accumulate. They build a foundation of evidence that you can rely on yourself. And that evidence creates genuine confidence. Not the false confidence that comes from bravado or denial, but real confidence rooted in demonstrated capability. This self-rescue capacity is what allows successful people to take risks others won't take, to pursue opportunities others are too afraid to pursue, to remain steady when circumstances are uncertain. They're not braver necessarily. They're not more talented, but they trust themselves. They know that even if things go wrong, even if plans fail, even if challenges arise, they can handle it. They can figure it out. They don't need rescue because they can rescue themselves. Second, you achieve emotional independence. This is different from emotional isolation. Emotional independence doesn't mean not needing relationships or connection. It means your emotional stability isn't dependent on external circumstances or other people's behavior. You can be disappointed without being devastated. You can face criticism without crumbling. You can experience setbacks without losing your sense of self. Your emotional equilibrium is internally generated and internally maintained. Most people are emotionally dependent. Their mood depends on how others treat them. Their confidence depends on external validation. Their peace depends on circumstances being comfortable. This dependency makes them vulnerable, easily disturbed, constantly reactive, because they've outsourced their emotional regulation to forces they cannot control. But when you accept that no one is coming to manage your emotions for you, that you must regulate yourself, something powerful happens. You stop expecting others to make you feel certain ways. You stop needing external circumstances to be perfect for you to feel okay. You develop internal stability that isn't shaken by external turbulence. This stability is magnetic. It attracts opportunity and respect, because everyone is looking for people who remain steady when things get difficult. Third, you develop discipline as a form of self-care rather than self-punishment. Most people see discipline as deprivation, as forcing yourself to do things you don't want to do. But this perspective comes from expecting someone else to create comfortable circumstances for you. When you realize no one is coming to make your life comfortable, you understand that discipline is how you take care of yourself, how you create the conditions you want rather than waiting for them to appear. Discipline becomes self-rescue. Waking early isn't deprivation. It's giving yourself the time you need to work on what matters before the day's demands consume you. Exercising isn't punishment. It's maintaining the physical capacity you need to handle challenges. Managing finances isn't sacrifice. It's creating the security and freedom no one else will create for you. Every disciplined action is an act of self-care, an act of taking responsibility for yourself rather than waiting for someone else to take care of you. When discipline is reframed this way, it stops feeling like burden, starts feeling like freedom. You're not disciplined because you should be. You're disciplined because you're smart enough to recognize that no one else will create the life you want. You must create it. And discipline is the tool of creation. Fourth, you master thought control and mental authority. When you stop waiting for external validation or permission, you must learn to validate and direct yourself. This means taking control of your internal dialogue, the constant stream of thoughts that either support or undermine you. Most people let this dialogue run automatically. Their thoughts control them rather than them controlling their thoughts. But when you accept full responsibility, you realize your thoughts are your responsibility too. If negative thoughts dominate, that's not circumstance or fate. That's you allowing certain thought patterns to persist. And if you're allowing them, you can also change them. You can interrupt destructive patterns. You can consciously choose different thoughts. You can direct your mental energy toward what serves you rather than what undermines you. This mental authority is perhaps the most important aspect of self-responsibility, because everything starts with thought. Your thoughts create your emotions. Your emotions drive your behavior. Your behavior creates your results. If you don't control your thoughts, you don't control anything. But when you master thought control, when you become the authority over your own mind, you gain power that no external circumstance can touch. Fifth, you establish internal order that manifests as external effectiveness. When you're waiting for external rescue, your inner world is usually chaotic, reactive, scattered, because you're constantly responding to external stimuli, hoping one of them will provide the solution you're seeking. But when you accept that no one is coming, that you must create order yourself, you naturally develop internal structure. You create systems. You establish routines. You make decisions about how you'll spend your time, your energy, your attention. You don't wait for life to organize itself around you. You organize yourself around your objectives. And this internal order creates external results. Not through magical thinking. Through the simple fact that organized, directed effort produces better outcomes than chaotic, reactive effort. This internal order also creates peace, because chaos is stressful even when it's self-created. But order is calming. When you know what you're doing and why, when you're acting from clear decisions rather than reacting from confusion, you experience a sense of rightness. of alignment, of being in control of yourself even when you can't control circumstances. Now here's the realization that changes everything, the insight that transforms responsibility from burden to liberation. Accepting that no one is coming doesn't mean you're alone. It means you're free. Free from dependency, free from waiting, free from needing circumstances or people to be different than they are. Free to act, free to create, free to become. When you're waiting for rescue, you're in bondage. Bondage to circumstances, bondage to other people's decisions, bondage to forces outside yourself. You cannot move forward until those forces align. You cannot create change until circumstances permit. You cannot become who you want to become until someone gives you permission or opportunity. This bondage feels safe because it's familiar, because it allows you to avoid responsibility. But it's still bondage, and bondage is suffering. But the moment you accept that no one is coming, that rescue isn't arriving, that you are entirely responsible for yourself, the bondage breaks. Not because circumstances change, but because your relationship to circumstances changes. They stop being obstacles you must wait for someone to remove. They become conditions you work with, problems you solve, challenges you overcome, and in that shift, you discover power you didn't know you had. This is the great paradox. The heaviest responsibility is also the greatest freedom. When you accept that everything is your responsibility, you stop being a victim of anything. You stop waiting for anything. You stop needing anything external to change before you can move forward. You become the source of your own progress, the creator of your own conditions, the author of your own life. And from this place of radical responsibility, everything becomes possible. Not easy, not guaranteed, but possible, because you're no longer limited by external factors. You're only limited by your own creativity, your own discipline, your own willingness to act. And those are things you can control, things you can develop, things you can strengthen through practice. Think about what this means practically. Right now, in whatever situation you find yourself, you have power. Not unlimited power, not the power to control all circumstances, but the power to control yourself, your response, your interpretation, your actions, your effort, your discipline, your focus, your persistence. And these things, your internal factors, are actually more determinative of outcomes than external circumstances. Two people can face identical external circumstances and produce radically different results based solely on their internal response. One person sees obstacles and quits. The other sees obstacles and adapts. One person blames circumstances and stays stuck. The other takes responsibility and moves forward. Same external conditions, completely different outcomes, all determined by whether someone accepts responsibility or waits for circumstances to change. This is why accepting that no one is coming is your greatest advantage. Not because it's comfortable. It's not. Not because it's easy. It's not. But because it awakens power that remains dormant as long as you're waiting. As long as you believe rescue is coming from outside, you don't access your internal resources fully. You don't develop self-rescue capacity. You don't achieve emotional independence. You don't master discipline or thought control or internal order. You remain dependent, passive, limited. But the moment you accept that you're on your own, that no one is coming, that you must save yourself, everything activates. Your dormant capacities come online. Your internal resources mobilize. Your power, which was always there but unused, becomes available. And from that place, transformation isn't just possible, it's inevitable. Because here's what happens when you truly accept responsibility. You stop making excuses. You stop blaming. You stop waiting. You stop expecting. And in the absence of excuses, blame, waiting, and expectation, only one thing remains. Action. Clear, direct, purposeful action toward what you want. And sustained action over time always produces results. Not instantly, not easily, but eventually, inevitably. This is the path every person who has transformed their life has walked. They stopped waiting. They stopped expecting rescue. They accepted full responsibility for their situation, their emotions, their outcomes. And from that acceptance, they found strength they didn't know they had. They discovered they could handle more than they thought. They could achieve more than they believed. They could become more than they imagined. Not because circumstances improved, but because they stopped waiting for circumstances to improve and started improving themselves. So what does this mean for you right now? Today, in whatever situation you find yourself, it means you have a choice. You can continue waiting. Continue expecting rescue. Continue believing that someone or something will eventually arrive and make things better. Continue giving your power to forces outside yourself. And if you make that choice, nothing will change. You'll be exactly where you are now in a year, in 5 years, in 10 years, still waiting, still expecting, still disappointed. Or you can accept the truth. No one is coming. No rescue is arriving. You are entirely responsible for yourself, your situation, your emotions, your outcomes. All of it, fully, completely, without exception. And in that acceptance, terrifying as it may feel initially, you'll find something profound. You'll find that you're enough, that you don't need rescue because you can rescue yourself, that you don't need someone to save you because you are capable of saving yourself. This acceptance is not a moment. It's a practice. Every day you'll be tempted to wait, to blame, to expect, to outsource your power. And every day you must choose responsibility instead, must choose action over waiting, must choose self-direction over dependency. This practice is difficult. It goes against decades of conditioning, against cultural messaging, against the comfortable illusions you've built. But the practice is also liberating. Every time you choose responsibility over victimhood, you become stronger. Every time you act instead of waiting, you prove your capability. Every time you take full ownership of your life, you experience the freedom that comes from not needing anyone to save you. And these experiences accumulate. They transform you, not into someone perfect, but into someone powerful, someone who doesn't need rescue because they've become self-rescuing. This is the foundation of all genuine strength. Not physical strength, not material success, not external power, but the internal certainty that comes from knowing you can handle whatever comes. That you don't need perfect circumstances or other people's permission or lucky breaks. That you can create what you need, solve what needs solving, overcome what needs overcoming, all through your own effort, your own discipline, your own commitment to taking full responsibility for yourself. And from this foundation, everything else becomes possible. The relationships you want, the career you envision, the health you desire, the peace you seek, not because these things are given to you, but because you create them, because you stop waiting for them to appear and start building them through consistent, responsible action. Let me be clear about something. This path is not glamorous. It doesn't promise overnight transformation or easy victories. It promises something more valuable. The gradual, steady development of genuine strength. The kind of strength that doesn't waver when circumstances are difficult. The kind of strength that doesn't need external validation to remain solid. The kind of strength that comes from knowing, deeply and certainly, that you are responsible for yourself and capable of handling that responsibility. This strength is quiet. It doesn't announce itself. It doesn't need to prove anything. It simply is, steady, reliable, unshakable. And when you develop this strength, when you become someone who has accepted that no one is coming and taken full responsibility for saving yourself, you move through the world differently. You're not waiting anymore. You're not hoping anymore. You're not dependent anymore. You're acting, creating, building from your own power, in your own direction, by your own choice. And people notice this change. They see someone who isn't waiting for permission or perfect conditions. Someone who isn't blaming circumstances or other people. Someone who has accepted full responsibility and is acting from that acceptance. And they're drawn to it. Because everyone, consciously or unconsciously, recognizes genuine strength when they encounter it. And genuine strength always begins with accepting that no one is coming to save you. That you must save yourself. And that you can. This is your greatest advantage. Not that no one is coming, but that accepting this truth frees you to become self-rescuing, self-directed, self-sufficient, not isolated, not alone, but sovereign, in command of yourself, responsible for yourself, and from that sovereignty capable of creating whatever life you choose to build. The path forward is clear. Stop waiting. Start accepting. Start acting. Start building. Take full responsibility for your life, your emotions, your outcomes, not someday. Now, not when conditions are perfect. With conditions as they are, become the person who doesn't need rescue, who saves themselves, who takes full ownership of their existence. This is not easy, but it is simple, and it is the only path to genuine freedom, genuine strength, genuine power. Everything else is waiting, and waiting is just another form of giving your power away. No one is coming to save you. This is not cruelty. This is truth, and this truth, fully accepted and acted upon, is the foundation of every extraordinary life ever lived. Accept it, embrace it, and discover the power that has been waiting for you to claim it all along, the power to save yourself.